Welcome everyone to Herding Squirrels, a podcast about modern teams. Joining us today is Louie Celiberti. Louie is Managing Director and Head of Software Engineering at Guggenheim Partners, where he has led the design and integration of platforms supporting investment banking, sales and trading, and holding company operations. Welcome, Louie. We're excited to have you today.
Happy to be here.
Louie, I want to get into our first build. And for this build, I want you to think of what is the best team experience you've ever been a part of, and build a model showing why that was so amazing.
These are different perspectives from individuals.
Okay.
All right. So what you see is a lot of times people share the same perspectives, but they often struggle explaining it. But they're not exactly the same because you do want differences. Right, so you got different colors. Some of them are the same for those that agree. The important part down below is you need a bridge, right? You need to emotionally bridge the team together. The flags up top represent the convergence of ideas.
I like that.
And then this is an important part. The leader, whether it's me or somebody else, should be below. Should be more, the servant leadership. Should not be above. It should be supporting the entire team. So that's it. That's how that's what I thought about.
For our next build, I'd like you to think of the opposite side of that. The most negative team experience, right? Worst team experience you've ever been a part of. And build a model to outline why you think that experience was so challenging.
Okay. All right. So, a little bit of the opposite. Okay. Right? Very few perspectives shared, understood. The distance, you can't bridge them. Right? The direction of the flags are completely different. And then the leader, because of that, not only has to try to control it, be a little bit higher, but I put a little helicopter here to implement, flying around constantly. No empowerment, right? Or there's a lack of trust across the team. So the leader feels like they have to helicopter everything. And again, the flags go in different directions. You're not making any progress.
Nice.
Right? I thought that's, an opposite approach. I've experienced both.
We've all been through a lot in the last handful of years, right? We've got COVID, remote work / the new way of working, AI adoption lately. What I'd love is, Louie, can you build a model that shows what does leading through uncertainty really look like? The real experience of navigating your team through changes when the playbook hasn't been written yet. Louie, I can't wait to see your change model.
All right. So the steps represent the change, right? And there's going to be some red landmines. Things aren't going to work out, right, as you're moving up. So this is where my little bright star represents optimism. And always supporting and always saying the path is always through, not around. And in order to do that, you have to be optimistic. You have to be supportive. You have to embrace risk. Because you can't get to the top where there's two flags plus a nice little pink flower without, which just fell off, but that's okay. Without having this optimism to get you through those landmines.
I really want to zone in a little on the embracing risk part about that.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit more about what does that mean to embrace risk, and then what does that mean to lead others into embracing risk?
Well, it starts with confidence. Confidence in the team and instilling confidence in the team. Making sure that they feel confident. Making sure they feel confident in themselves, as well as the support they're going to receive from their leadership. Life is about risk. Project management, system implementations aren't about things going well. It's about when they don't go well. And how do you react to that? You can't circumvent that. I said the path out is through the difficulty, is through the challenges. That's what makes it much more exciting as well. A team should understand it's the challenge that's going to make the fulfillment. It's not going to be the easy path. Everyone can do that. And once you do it, take an easy path, what is there to look back on? Your success, anything is fleeting. But when you go through some challenges and you have some scars, some gray hairs, some lost hairs, that's when you look back and those really mean the most. You don't forget that. You don't forget what you went through. You don't forget what your team went through. And you also realize that you can go through anything. Like, that's the eternal optimism. There isn't a thing in the world. Listen, we're not diffusing bombs. There's a difference in diffusing bombs and implementing systems. But that risk is inherent. It's ubiquitous. It's always there. You have to embrace it.
The path out is through is such a powerful statement. And going back to is the challenge, like that's the goal, right?
Yeah.
That's where the growth comes from. How do you help individual contributors who don't know that and haven't learned that yet?
Well, first it's through action. Like, I can't be panicking every time something goes wrong, right? So there's a calmness that a leader has to instill that hopefully over time permeates throughout the team and the individual contributors. I've had experience where I would ask, so where do you think we're going to be next week? And the response was, well, I don't know, I'm not sure. And then, managing expectations, right? And the motivation for my question wasn't a test. It was to get people thinking about the roadmap, the point of reference. How do you know when you're wrong if you don't have a point of reference to measure? It wasn't about, all right, when we're not here next Wednesday, because chances are you're not going to be here next Wednesday. We're not going to be here with the goal met by next Wednesday. Then I'm just going to hammer you. It was about establishing the roadmap, establishing the point of reference, and people learning that in order to face these challenges, A, you have expectations, you got to get through it. And two, you have to think about what it should take. Know that the reality is going to be different. But without understanding what it should take, you're not going to understand where you're wrong. Like, there's a difference between a roadmap that gives you guidance and just meandering about because I'm too scared to think about it. I'm too scared to put a stake in the ground. It's healthy. And it's just that, again, it comes with action. Instilling confidence, instilling patience, instilling calmness in the face of all this. And that it's okay. Let's pick it up. What did you learn? And guess what? When you do fail, let's fail as quickly as possible. Right? Let's not go in there and over-engineer and 3 months later find out we failed. Listen, we're dealing with humans. Requirements are coming from humans. Solutions are coming from humans. Understandings are coming from humans. All of which are imperfect.
What a great way to tail end that. And I'd love to know. You've been leading teams for a while now, and so you've got some experience. We're in a space now where there's more generations working together in the workplace. What type of changes have you seen over the past 5 years, 10 years, as we have a lot of these different viewpoints now working together, who all have very different, they've all grown up very differently, they all have different ways they look at life, at work. What are you seeing from your seat with these changes and how people are different now than maybe they were 5, 10, 15 years ago?
Yeah, I think, like I use the term embracing, I think there's a term harnessing. So understanding the strengths of a generation, understanding the strengths of an individual. So let's talk about the generation, right? So and we'll paint with broad brushes, right? Because it's a lot easier. The older generation, a little more conservative, a little more, I don't want to say disciplined, but a little more structured. Let's say structured, right? The younger generations are a little more willing to try different things, right? And willing to embrace the experience. That is what I learned, is something I wanted to harness. I realized I can't get in front of that, and I learned that I don't want to get in front of it. Now, at the same time, the older generation, you need to harness the pain that they went through, harness their experience, even though they may not have wanted to go through it. That experience is real and valuable. So the weight of their words in a certain perspective are heavier. And then the weight of the words of the younger generation in terms of energy, right? You want to tap into that energy. You want to tap into that, it's not ignorance, don't get me wrong. The lack of experience that often comes with bliss, right? Because they're waiting to experience that. And they have the energy. They're not jaded like me, who have gone through this, right? So as a person of the older generation, I have to I have to be able to communicate what potential landmines are without sounding jaded. And almost allowing them to maybe step on one or two. To allow them to understand that, hey, some of this stuff is real, right? That things can go wrong. We have to be accountable. We just can't go through life experiencing things for the sake of experience with no accountability, right? But there are ways to do that. And I found with the older generation, there's the jadedness, there's the over-seasoning, and the younger generation, there's that little zealousness that you want to tap into, but you still want to govern, put the parameters in, and you want to harness the strengths of all the individuals and all the generations.
I really enjoy your positive framework on that, because I think there's so many, right? There's no shortage of articles or posts on here's what's wrong with Gen Z, or here's why the boomers can't use AI, or whatever it might be, right? There's always it seems to be a negative take.
Yeah.
And instead, this refreshing, how do we harness the good that everyone is bringing and pulling it together? And I actually, in talking about pulling it together, how do you get these people to work together? Like, can you get the Gen Zs and the boomers, can you put them in a room and get them to mix and mingle?
Yeah, listen, it like anything, starts with empathy, right? It starts with realizing that it's the multiple perspectives, whether it's overzealousness or over-conservatism, and bringing those together. I gotta tell you, it's not easy on a Monday morning when you just want to get something done, right? Or it's not easy 45 minutes in the call when as a leader, your stomach is in knots because people aren't getting along. But when you hang up that phone, that the outcome is going to be better because of those multiple perspectives than it would be if you just allowed the individual perspectives to work in a vacuum. But again, guess what? It's not easy. And that's part of the challenges we need to embrace in bringing people together. I also try to tell people there's a responsibility, I call it mutual mentorship. Now that means not only mentoring others, but willing to be mentored. And how often is the latter more challenging? Right? People don't want to be mentored, but they have to. And at the same time, they have to be willing to share their perspective. They have to be willing to put their career in the hands of those around them, because that is the way to the best outcome because of those multiple perspectives. And guess what? With AI, you will not achieve without it, because what AI has just done is compressed all these perspectives in order to get stuff done. You need the front office to be able to explain business value. You need the front office to be able to tie how this is going to make things better. You need the back office functions, whether it's IT, operations, legal, compliance, to be able to appreciate the value and properly explain the challenge and the risks that need to be mitigated without just saying no. Right? And AI, this is why things are struggling, because everyone's thinking it's a technical change. A lot of people are talking about the cultural shift. And it really started with the cloud, right? Whereas engineers, we had to work with operations groups and networking groups and security groups. Now we're expanding it back further into legal and front office, right? Front office should have always been in there, but so there's a term out there, shifting right. We've learned in engineering, shifting left. Keep your eyes on the disciplines. Front load your testing, your documentation. Shifting right means you better front load your understanding of the business value, because building those disciplines in absence of that isn't going to help anybody.
I love how you frame this in a cultural shift versus a technical shift, and that, right, you're compressing these various verticals, right?
Yes.
They're closer now. Do you feel like your peers? Do you feel like in the industry that is well understood?
No.
Because this is the first time I think I've
No,
heard
not
it
at
phrased
all.
in that way, and it makes a lot of sense when you say.
Yeah, listen, everyone. Listen, again, going back to the cloud, you had engineers who just saw the cloud as drag and drop resources, right? And then you had traditional support functions, networking, operations, infrastructure type, who didn't want to change, and they thought they could do the same thing just on the cloud. And what that resulted in was costing a lot more money. And what resulted in the front engineers just thinking, oh, I don't need to talk to these groups. I just have access to these resources. But guess what? The principles behind those resources haven't changed. The network security principles. So what that introduced was a lot of risk. Security risks, lack of support and maintenance, lack of extensibility. So you had either leaving too much optimization on the table that the cloud offered, or introducing too much risk that the cloud offered as well. The key was to bring them all together. It's still a struggle, right? I think it starts with people's job they feel is to keep their job. But our job is really to do our job. And our job, in order to do our job, means you have to understand other people's job, what motivates them, what gets them up in the morning, what keeps them in bed in the morning, what keeps them up over at night. You know, as an engineer, I need to understand what the security is worried about, because if I don't, I can't be precise with my implementation to align with their concerns. And otherwise, it's going to be a broad, brute force no. Or re-engineering after 6 weeks of development, right? That you know that happens. Oh, one more thing. All those conversations have to happen early. Those conversations have to shift left. Otherwise, you're just going to move forward and then move back, move forward and move back.
Oh, I love the way you frame that up. It's understanding the people side of it. Like, what does everyone need? What is that thing that again, to do your job, and what's keeping you up at night, and how do we pull all of that together, and then we can figure out the right balance of risk and optimization that fits.
And let me add one more thing to that, what people rarely see. And it goes back to mutual mentorship. You almost have infinite learning capabilities. Your learning now accelerates at such a steep rate that you can never do on your own. You will never learn as much as when you're learning from others in the context of something real, a problem to solve. I'll sign up every day. Even as a leader, I always say I have 30 mentors, and those 30 happen to report to me in the HR system.
There's a quote, and I'm going to forget who it is. I'll have to put it in the show notes later. But as our wisdom grows, so does our shoreline of ignorance. And Louie, I think, like you said, you have 30 people mentoring.
That's
you.
awesome. I'm gonna write that one down.
Louie, I'd love to jump into our last build, if you would do so with me. And I love to end with this build. It's the same build for everyone. But I want you to imagine you have a room full of individual contributors about to embark on their first leadership role. And I'd like you to build the Louie Celiberti advice model for this group of leaders. What advice would you give them?
Oh, that's a good one.
All right, let's see the Louie Celiberti advice model.
Okay. All right, so I don't know if I did this right, but so down here we have different colors, and that is different people's understanding of the problem. The first thing you have to do is make sure the team understands the problem collectively. So now all of a sudden you got consistent colors, right? And you build on that. You start to, up here is priorities. So it's clear. So that means your priorities have to be clear. And it's pretty stable. So they can't be shifting all the time. Doesn't mean you can't adapt. There's a difference between being impulsive and being adaptive, right? So, but it starts with having clear priorities for the team, right? Now, next thing is, these are bottlenecks. You have to work very hard to remove the bottlenecks from the team, right? That's extremely important, and that could be one of your biggest roles, is let the people do, and in order for them to do, you have to remove the things that get in their way. And the last piece is, you see how these are getting smaller to one? That represents focus. You have to allow your people to focus. You have to maximize their ability to focus. And that means minimize the distractions. Absorb the stuff coming down from above. Don't react and let it through. Absorb it, because nothing's worse than talking to someone and changing their priority from yesterday, or changing their focus from yesterday. That's where, as a leader, it takes stomach to do that, right? It takes stomach to push back up as opposed to let it roll down. So, and I think if you do those 4 things, things generally work out. They really do. I've learned that. If people are happy, you end up getting the tasks done. Management's happy. Listen, management's not going to be happy every single day. It's just the way it is. Your people aren't going to be happy every single day. I'm not happy every single day, and I'm a relatively happy person. But if you can just absorb the distractions, keep the priorities clear, allow people to work with minimum, if not any, bottlenecks, and everyone understands what it is they're doing and where we're trying to get to, how can it work out?
I love it. So much wisdom in one small.
Yeah, that's great. What a great.
Louie,
I love this storytelling you taught me. This was fantastic.
this is fantastic. Yeah, well, and that's always my next question: is what was it like building models and sharing stories via Lego bricks?
No, it's awesome. Listen, let's go back to the generational thing. I'm a little older, right? Would have never thought about doing this, but I was so happy when you reached out to me and you told me about it. I was really interested. How can I pull this off? It's fantastic. Anything to make communications better should always be welcomed.
Awesome. That makes me so happy. Louie, thank you so much for joining us. If our listeners want to find you elsewhere on the internet, is there any place they should...
Oh, just look up, I'm on LinkedIn. Yeah, and listen, I'm happy to share my perspectives with the hope that I learn from others. And I just enjoy talking about different things like this. So if they want to reach out to me, I'm happy to correspond to them over LinkedIn, email, text, or jump on a Zoom call. I just really enjoy this.
Awesome. Perfect. Well, we'll make sure, Louie, to put your LinkedIn in the show notes so everyone can find you. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining us, Louie. This has been a blast.
Oh, same here. Listen, I really appreciate the opportunity, and I had high expectations, and they surpassed it. So much fun. Thank you, Brandon.
Fantastic. All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us again. This is Herding Squirrels, where we uncover the nuts and bolts of teams.